Students marched to try and stop the government from putting fee deregulation to the test.
We deserve a future too!
The protesters set their sights on Town Hall, knowing the changes would cut deeper than their classrooms.
We deserve a future too!
Rugby league has taken big strides in education in recent years, but its student players and Aboriginal contingent are now among those in the firing line. As part of the 2014-15 federal budget, the Abbott government proposed giving universities the power to set their own course prices in what they believe will boost global competition. The Education Minister, as well as key players in the sector, declined to be interviewed on their support for the proposal. Minister Pyne has given the education sector two choices: spread access to higher education or keep the current system and risk being left behind. According to budget papers, university graduates earn 75% more than school leavers over their lifetime. If the proposal gets the go-ahead, it will come into effect on January 1st, 2016. While this system may look internationally attractive, not all students are on the same page. Rayanne Jericho Kalimlim focuses on learners from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. The US has already adopted university fee deregulation, which has seen its courses rise past $100,000. Kalimlim says the Abbott government can't guarantee the same won't occur in Australia, which doesn't bode well for those he represents.
That really affects people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds because they tend to be from first and second generation migrant families with little familiar money and oftentimes little familial support.
But course pricing is only part of the education revamp. The student amenities fee is also facing the axe, which concerns Kalimlim, who says it's at the heart of the university experience for those who struggle with the language.
The Liberal government are trying to remove that fee, which a lot of university services are relying on. Things like counselling, things like translation services, things like English as a second language services, which a lot of people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds need to be able to, do well at university.
Christopher Pyne is looking to transfer one of every $5 of additional revenue towards scholarships for disadvantaged students. Kalimlim had a stern message for Christopher Pyne and the Liberal Party.
We will fight you in your electorates. And the students never lose. When the students are organised, and when the students campaign, and when the students want to make sure that they can study and that the future can study, they will win and you will lose.
Future university goers will be happy to dump the new prices on HECS, but as fees rise, so does the amount of debt students have to repay. Money isn't the only thing concerning students about the possible education revamp. Students rely on teachers as key sources of knowledge within the institutions, but the educators are experiencing problems of their own. The National Tertiary Education Union guards all entrances as they convince students to join the fight. The NTEU is a watchdog made up of teachers and senior academics that protect their rights to research and fair working conditions. Trade unions joined the education body at the front of the UTS tower, but it was not all partying. The two groups pledged their unity as they continued to share ideas on how to grill the government. The proposed changes will not only affect the education sector, with other areas set to feel the ripple effects. The Holden Cup is the National Rugby League's under-20s competition. To play in this competition, athletes must be involved in higher education or working full-time. The Holden Cup is seen as a stepping stone to professional rugby league, but the education revamp could spell exclusion. The university price hike is set to drop participation, especially from those of poorer backgrounds. Tony McFadgen is the Holden Cup Welfare and Education Manager. McFadgen grew up playing rugby league in Canberra and was on the verge of first grade in the late 90s. McFadgen began studying at the end of his football career, but says if he had his time again, he would have started young. 1 in 5 Holden Cup players go on to play one NRL game. That number drops to 12% for 8 games or more, which may make the competition seem like a revolving door. McFadgen insists education is not the competition's safety net.
Giving you every opportunity to go in and be part of that 12%. They all think they are. They all think they're going to make it, which is great. You wouldn't be there if you didn't. But we also want to say we'll enhance that ability to go in by the structured nature of work-study.
One of the more popular education initiatives is the Graduates of League program, which has a rather interesting story to its creation.
Graduates of League was grown out of, Ben Cray's inability to sit in the library and go through those sorts of scenarios and get his work done. He kept getting hit up for signatures and photos, etc., as happens. So he's very good with that, but he also saw that there was a need potentially to have, I guess, an environment that they could work in that was a little bit different to the other students. So.
But the programs start well before players reach the national youth competition. CareerWise is another initiative that helps students who are finishing their HSC and starting their transition to professional rugby league.
And then it's really honing in on players or their individual circumstances and what it means to be in the rugby league system and where they're going.
McFadyen says it's all about the clubs working closely with the universities to prevent a large drop in participation should fees become deregulated.
Potentially on our regional institutions could have some impact, but again, I'd like to think there's relationships between the club and institutions there that maybe avoid any drops.
The Holden Cup now boasts a quarter of its Aboriginal players are either attempting a degree or diploma this year. Historically, education has been an area Aboriginal people have recorded lower numbers in compared to non-Indigenous Australians.
Who took you out there?
Myself.
Oh, true. Did you get the train out?
Bulldogs Holden Cup junior Adam Elliott is leading the way in improving these trends both in and around the competition.
Any schoolwork? I'd like to know.
Elliott devotes one day a week to helping Aboriginal students from De La Salle College make the most of their higher education.
So far, I've been working here for a term now, and all my students. These are all the boys here, all here on the same day, which I might add is a good achievement for the fellas to all be here and coming to school and having fun and here to learn, but also here to just have a muck around with their mates and have a bit of a play around.
Elliott is brought in to talk to the boys about their assignments and chill out with a game of touch football when the workload gets tough.
Guys, is Adam a good teacher?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. No?
Malik reckons not.
Inspirational stuff.
Malik's on detention.
The 20-year-old says he sees a lot of himself in the Year 7 and 8 students, having been brought up with an Aboriginal father. The footballer says the students aren't the only ones who benefit from these activities.
I get to come here during the week and do a bit with the lads and realise that they're all either fans of football or they don't care about football or whatever, so it sort of puts me in this perspective that it's not the end of the world, or two, like these fellas love hearing about me playing and all that sort of stuff as well, so it makes me proud to be able to play as well.
Elliott says any culture can try whatever tactic it likes, but students will be more likely to stay away from university if it means digging deeper into their pockets.
It's always a worry to sort of think that prices are going to go up because, one, it's going to scare people off wanting to study in the first place, and not so much thinking about the big picture of what you get at the end. You just start to think like it's out of proportion with what they can actually put forward to go to uni. So
These men are at the top of the class both on and off the field. The Rugby League Players Association Academic Awards celebrate rising stars that have shown diligence in their studies while representing their state and countries at youth level. Currently, Holden Cup players are entitled to education grants each year, but if they are overlooked for the big time, the game will cut their assistance 12 months later, leaving the students to fend for themselves. Players only have to look around for a history lesson. The Sydney Cricket Ground is one of Australia's most iconic sporting venues, home to the old member stand and Yabba, who has turned a new shade of bronze. This year, there have been 220 players enrolled in university from the approximate 1,000 that have been put through in 2014. The figure is a big jump from the 68 recorded in the first competition in 2008.
Next up from the Titans, studying Bachelor of Nursing at Griffith University, Mitch Sharp.
Many believe props aren't the brightest bunch, but Mitch is an exception. Players now start the Holden Cup with one eye on the future as they look at life beyond the potential decade of glory.
Footy doesn't last forever. You need something to back you up afterwards. So I don't want to be a footy player that kind of finishes and then ends up just labouring for the rest of my life, kind of hard work and like that. I'd rather set myself up now and then be able to kind of transition into a job I want to do when I finish footy.
But as if two commitments isn't enough, the 20-year-old also works as a labourer during the week to earn some extra cash.
I'm just used to being busy now, and you've got to look ahead and plan what's coming in the next few weeks and months and make sure you're on top of it early, especially when we're going away every second weekend.
Like Sharp, Cowboys Holden Cup block Corey Jensen knows all too well about travel, having moved from country North Queensland as a youngster to get more exposure in metropolitan Brisbane.
Moving to Iggy was not only for my football but for my education as well. They're highly with their education as well. It's probably more of a priority than football. I went there to get my OP and then went pretty much straight into uni.
Jensen is in his second year of a sport and exercise science degree at James Cook University. Much like his team's defence, the student takes an organised approach to make sure he comes out on top.
It is tough. Like as Mitch said, you got to juggle, you got to plan ahead and work out what you're going to do day in, day out. So I sort of try and keep notes and keep a diary and keep on top of things, otherwise it just gets too hectic.
The Lock says, while fees may be increasing, you can't put a price on a dream.
It's hard because everything's expensive these days, it's a high cost thing. But then again, I guess if it's your dream, it's not a job that you want to do, then it shouldn't really set you back, the financial costs, because you got heaps in that, you can pay it off eventually. But if it's something you want to do, then I say go for it. It's once in a lifetime.
Sharp is fortunate the game covers most of his university expenses, but he can't help but imagine the hit players would take if they weren't compensated.
Definitely helps that the NRL helps out with the grants and whatnot, keeping us going. So it doesn't affect us as much, but I don't know how people who aren't being helped along can do it actually.
Jerome Rapati has played almost 150 National Rugby League games for the New Zealand Warriors. A bad run of injuries caught up with the veteran, which forced him to retire earlier this year. Rapati is still around the club and says the current crop of junior warriors line up for advice on how to make the big time.
The first intention obviously is to play NRL. When they come to here, they always talk about what's it like to play in the NRL, what's it like to play on big stadiums, train full times, things like that. The good thing about that is that we can also, while we're telling them about it, we can introduce the educational aspect about it, and also the fact that it's not very long that you have in the NRL, and that your off-field responsibilities are just as important as the on-field ones.
Rapati was the recipient of a new award at the RLPA Academic Awards ceremony. The Pacifica is awarded to current Polynesian players who have been excellent mentors to their peers and junior players. The award was presented by Rapati's former international teammate Nigel Wagner, who is also a welfare officer with the NRL.
You know, it's great that the boys appreciate the opportunity that they've got in the game at the moment. The game's thrown a lot of funding behind it to help support them as well, and working at new ways and new initiative to keep the dream alive, I guess. You know.
Wagner boasts an impressive resume, playing 260 NRL games across 4 clubs. While Wagner understands players would put everything on hold for a shot at the big time, he believes education gives them food for thought beyond football.
I think once you start early, you understand how to get that balance right, and then that balance will, you can hold throughout your whole career. You understand time management, you understand when you've got to do homework, when you've got to study, but also when you've got to do extras at training. It just becomes a normal habit, and part of being an athlete.
Shark Ben Shahood says he and other rookies love listening to greats like Wagner because they give direction on the next stage of life.
I was talking to Andrew Ryan a couple of weeks ago because he lives down the Shire, and he runs his own landscaping business, you know what I mean, and it's really awesome to see how he's succeeded in rugby league and then now he's fallen back on his landscaping business. Like, that's awesome, you know what I mean? Like, far out.
That's something you...
Yeah, definitely. Like, even if I do have a career in rugby league and finish by the age I'm 30, like, I'd be able to go back to building houses, maybe just, small renovations. Like, it'd be awesome, eh?
While Shahood appreciates the advice from former greats, he was quick to point out the support from those who mean most.
So, like, straight away when I finished my HSC, they were happy with what I wanted to do, like being a carpenter. They were happy and enrolled me into TAFE and helped me through that way. And with footy as well, they're really supportive. So if I need any help, a lift or anything, they're there straight away, which is awesome.
Family grants and mentoring, the game has invested a lot of time and effort into education. There is now plenty to fall back on for those who are left behind. 11 of the 17 players named in last year's Academic Team of the Year have gone on to make their NRL debut this season. Who knows what's on the horizon?
For the 2014 NRL RLPA Academic Team of the Year.
It will be tough to watch all the hard work come undone should the university price hike turn NRL hopefuls away. Education cuts don't just affect education. There have been a lot of questions thrown at the proposed education revamp, but full-time students aren't the only ones who want answers, with the future of student rugby league players also up in the air. because the government's plan to deregulate university fees impacts many outside the institution's four walls. Tony Salerno, UTS News.